Today's show is brought to you by Making Speed.
We install the cam and the car makes some insane number. It was sort of outdoing and outshining some of the bigger guys.
I had no idea. I put the ball down at that point.
He had no idea what was going on. I had no idea. I'm just like, hey, this is cool. It's cool. It's cool. And, it sort of rolls into this whole exposing of nitro, which was at the time the big all motor secret.
Right. Okay. So we bring this car to Paulie, right? And we knew Paulie had done some shit on Jeremy's car.
So you're Jeremy, how you built all those cars?
And he promised he would keep all this shit secret because he was local. And we told him everything to do on this car. This car, we had actually did full CFD analysis, full scan, full CFD analysis. So we know exactly what the aero is in terms of drag efficiency, right? And next thing you know, before this car even comes out, like Paulie puts all that shit on the car. Like the wheel covers, the wing. If you look at it, there's a point where all of a sudden the car shows up with a wing that's similar to ours in style, but we only gave Paulie the B wing. Right. So the wing that we showed Paulie is actually the non-optimized wing for this car. Right. But he copied it onto thing and then also the wheel covers. I don't know if you noticed, Jeremy's car came out with wheel covers also. The blue. Well, the really interesting thing is on the wheel covers, if you don't do the wing just right, the wheel covers don't work. The wheel covers completely signal off of the wing. So if you just did straight wheel covers with the wrong wing, you're not going to get the full advantage of it, right? So we're seeing the B-spec wing, the wheel covers go on to the car, and he goes fast. And this was like, okay, when we were out, we stopped at whatever, the 1017 crank. And I think in 2005, we were running 968 or something like that. Everybody else was around 10.1. They weren't cracking the nines.
And what fuel was this at the time?
E99.
Got it. So this is dabbling into the ethanol / ethanol.
First mess around with ethanol. But E99's got nothing compared to M1.
No.
I mean, just the potential energy in methanol versus ethanols. We're talking two different zip codes.
Mm-hmm. So we go out there, we set the record 968 at Pomona, and we just leave it at that, right? What's the point?
If I'm always going to be half a second ahead, what's the fun of that, right? So when we withdrew, okay, we had the 1017 crank. Then you started to see whatever the 102 billet cranks come out. The 102 billet crank was a direct replacement for those 107 stuff, right? And then we started seeing 106. And then when we jumped back in, they were just getting into the 108s. So we have super good 106, 108 setups. That's essentially the top end package is similar to what you ran last time. Right. But then when we started to realize, okay, so I was very open about what we were doing with the cylinder heads. Like, look, these are 400 CFM cylinder heads. And then we know that started a whole thing. All the cylinder head companies went back to drawing board, Coke, whatever. And they came out with their whatever, fucking, I don't know what they came out with, right? That was all to address the fact that we posted numbers that were 35 CFM more than anybody had seen. Looking at the industry, yeah, he's fucking bottom feed. After done setting records with 1 and 2, we released 3, 4, and 5 so they could set records with 3, 4, and 5. Port flow was even like, he was like, we're done at 370. I'm like, nah, man, there's more in it. And so I was spending all my time at Port Flow shop working on these heads on the flow bench, seat and guide machine. Boom, 415 consistently, right? And then here's the funny thing is, Port Flow is like, well, I'm not going to copy Dave's port, so I'm going to have he's at TRD. Like, there's an interesting group of people that exist in the South, what we call the South Bay. Like these guys that came just slightly before us that were from that whole Torrance, Southern LA, they call it the South Bay. They worked for TRD, HPD, Electromotive, you know, even like Connecco and stuff like that comes out of that whole South Bay squad, right? So Tom tells, hey, I want a 400 CFM head. So knows his shit. That's why he's a stable factor in TRD because, you know, he knows his shit. So does this head, 400 CFM head for Tom. You look at it, it's exact same principles that I've been doing, right? And comes in, oh, yo, dog, what's this head? Oh, it feels 400 CFM. Hey, I'll pay for the programming. Let's make it a CNC port. That was a CNC ported large CFM head. It was basically, he paid for the work that Tom had did after Tom had referenced the work that I did and had kind of duplicate that. Like, I have no problems giving that to Tom or friends, you know? But I just found it interesting that would be like, see the opportunity. Hey, I'll be the good guy and I'll program that head for you. And then sold CNC heads with that port. I don't think Tom sold any. That's the that we all know, right? There's no technology there. It's like, is he a bad guy? Nice guy? I don't know. We don't hang out like that. But in terms of looking at the industry, yeah, he's bottom feeder. He's a bottom feeder. As soon as the innovators from other areas stop to exist, he's going to make billet parts. Isn't that what he's doing? Let's make billet casings for CRV differentials. Good job. Yeah, there's no technology there. Like, CNC billet, just copy and paste now. There's no technology. Everybody's got a CNC machine. Everybody's got a bootleg copy of SolidWorks, and everybody's got a cheap scanner and a cheap 3D printer.
It's easy now.
Right? So when we said we were going to come back in, okay, here's the head. This is how much it flows, right? We hadn't sold the BMF5 cams in public at this point. We were only selling 1 and 2 because we're going to release 3, 4, and 5. So we later on released 3, 4, and 5 years later. After they were done after setting records with 1 and 2, we released 3, 4, and 5 so they could set records with 3, 4, and 5. That's what happened.
I actually dumbed it down and say, yeah, it must have been a leaf flowing through because I didn't want people to think, why the was that car going so fast? They can tell people whatever the story is, but when they go to sleep at night, running my shit.